The morning sun spilled gold across the marble floors of the royal palace, but its warmth did little to lighten the tension that hung in the air. Princess Amara sat at the edge of her father's grand bed, her hands clenched tightly in her lap. King Darius, once a towering figure of strength and authority, now looked frail, his chest rising and falling with labored breaths. "Father, you must rest," Amara said, though her voice trembled. She had never seen him like this, not since the illness first began, creeping slowly, silently, like a shadow that refused to leave. King Darius shook his head, forcing a weak smile. "No, Amara, you need to know the truth," he coughed, covering his mouth with a trembling hand. "It is time you learned the reason for this ailment that no healer can cure." Amara leaned closer, her heart pounded. "Tell me, father, whatever it is, we can face it together." He sighed, as if the weight of the world rested on his shoulders. "Long ago, before you were born, our kingdom was blessed and cursed. A sorceress, enraged by my father's refusal to aid her, cast a spell. It was meant to punish our lineage, a reminder that love and duty often collide." His gaze fixed on hers, sharp despite his weakness. "The spell ties my life to your marriage, Amara. Until you wed, I will continue to weaken. If you remain unmarried, I will not survive another season." Amara's mouth went dry. The world around her seemed to tilt, the gilded walls of the palace fading into a blur. You mean I must marry to save you?" "Yes," Darius whispered, his hand clutching hers. "The union is not just a personal matter. It is a lifeline for the kingdom and for me." Amara pressed her palm against his, her mind racing. She had dreamed of love, of choosing her own path, but now those dreams felt like a luxury she could no longer afford. But I don't even know whom to marry. And what if—" her voice faltered. The king's eyes softened. "There is no time for hesitation. The court will bring forward candidates, nobles and princes from neighboring lands. You must choose wisely and swiftly." Tears pricked her eyes, but she blinked them away, forcing herself to focus. "I will do whatever it takes, father. I swear it." A faint smile crossed Darius's lips, though his body shook with the effort. "You have always been brave, my daughter. But remember, in matters of the heart, duty and desire do not always walk the same path, and sometimes the path of duty is the cruelest of all." As she left the room, the echo of her father's words followed her like a shadow. Outside, the palace gardens glimmered with morning dew, the scent of jasmine heavy in the air. Yet for Amara, the world seemed suddenly narrower, confined to a single impossible choice. Somewhere, beyond the walls of the palace, a clock began to tick, counting down the days of her father's life and the moment she had left to decide a future she had never imagined. Princess Amara wandered through the palace gardens, her fingers brushing over the soft petals of blooming roses. The morning air carried the faint scent of jasmine, but it could not mask the storm raging in her heart. Duty pressed down on her like a stone. Her father's life hung in the balance, yet her mind rebelled at the thought of marrying a stranger for the sake of survival. She paused by the marble fountain, watching the water ripple under the sunlight. A laugh, warm and familiar, broke through her thoughts. She turned to see Kael, the captain of the royal guard, leaning casually against a column. His dark eyes held a mixture of mischief and concern. "Amara," he said softly, as if afraid the walls might hear. "I heard everything about the curse, your father, the marriage." Her heart skipped. Kyle had been her friend since childhood, the one person who had always understood her, the one who made her laugh even in the loneliest moments. Yet now, his presence felt dangerous. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered, though she didn't ask him to leave. "I go where I'm needed," he said, stepping closer. "And right now, I think you need someone who doesn't see you as a princess or a pawn, but as you." Amara swallowed hard. "Kyle, this isn't simple. My duty. It's not just about me. It's about my father, the kingdom, everything." Kyle reached out, his hand brushing hers. The contact sent a jolt through her, and she knew with terrifying clarity that she cared for him far more than propriety allowed. "I know," he said gently, "but do you think your heart will forgive you if you marry someone you don't love just to save your father?" Her eyes filled with tears. "What choice do I have?" He shook his head, frustration and sorrow mingling in his gaze. "There's always a choice, Amara, but the right one, the one that doesn't destroy you, maybe it's harder to see." Before she could respond, the palace doors swung open and a procession of suitors arrived, their fine robes glinting in the morning sun. Dukes, princes, and noblemen from distant lands had come to vie for her hand, each carrying the weight of political alliance rather than love. Amara's chest tightened. She looked at Kyle, wishing, hoping that this moment could last forever, even just for a heartbeat. But reality intruded cruelly. One by one, the suitors were announced to the waiting court. Their eyes were polite, calculating, their smiles carefully crafted. None of them knew her, yet each of them assumed they were entitled to her future. As the parade of suitors approached, Kyle stepped back, bowing slightly. "I'll always be here, Amara, even if the world tries to decide for you." Her heart ached as he disappeared into the crowd of courtiers. She straightened her spine, forcing herself to smile at the first suitor, a tall prince from the northern provinces. Duty had arrived in gilded robes, and Amara realized that the choice she feared most might come sooner than she could imagine. Yet deep in her chest, a spark of defiance remained. She would play her part, meet these suitors, but no matter what the kingdom demanded, her heart refused to surrender, at least not entirely. For the first time, she understood the cruel truth of her father's warning. Love and duty rarely walked the same path, and she was about to be forced to choose between them. The grand hall of the palace was alive with murmurs, the polished floors reflecting the flickering candlelight as Amara entered, her posture regal but tense. Today was no ordinary introduction. Each suitor would face trial designed to reveal their character, courage, and suitability, not only for marriage, but to be worthy of the kingdom. The first trial was the trial of wisdom. A series of riddles, ancient and treacherous, were posed by the royal scholars, each designed to test intelligence and judgment. Amara observed carefully, noting which suitors hesitated, which answered quickly, and which resorted to arrogance rather than thought. The northern prince faltered at the very first riddle, his face flushing red as he stumbled over the answer. A visiting duke, polished and confident, solved it with ease, bowing deeply to the princess afterward. But Amara noticed something else. A flicker of cruelty in his eyes, a subtle satisfaction in another's failure. That made her uneasy. Next came the trial of valor. The courtyard had been transformed into a training ground, and suitors were asked to display skill in combat, strategy, and endurance. Knights swung swords with precision, archers released arrows that whistled through the air, and strategists devised clever maneuvers in mock battles. Kale, standing to the side as an observer and protector, watched with guarded concern. Though he had no official role in the trials, he knew that appearances could be deceiving. "Watch them closely, princess," he murmured. strength is not just in arms, but in the choices they make under pressure. One suitor, a prince from the Southern Isles, saved a fellow competitor from an accident during the trial, showing compassion alongside skill. Amara's heart fluttered, not with love, but with admiration. Perhaps character could be judged after all. Finally came the trial of loyalty. The princess herself posed questions designed to probe each suitor's values, intentions, and willingness to sacrifice for the kingdom. Amara's voice rang clear in the hall. If the kingdom is threatened, would you act in its best interest, even if it meant personal loss? Some answered with ease, offering polished speeches about honor and duty. Others hesitated, revealing ambition or fear. The Southern prince spoke earnestly, his eyes unwavering. The kingdom comes first, but I would protect its people, its rulers, and its legacy, not just because it is expected, but because it is right. Amara noted the subtle distinctions, filing each response away in her mind. She was beginning to see that while duty demanded marriage, love, or at least respect, might still be possible if she chose carefully. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the trials concluded. The suitors retreated to their chambers, some confident, some uncertain. Amara remained in the quiet of the garden, her mind spinning. She thought of Kale, his steady presence, his unwavering honesty. He had no noble title, no lands, no alliance to offer, but his heart was true. And yet, the reality of her father's cause pressed down with relentless weight. One choice could save her father, but at what cost to her own happiness? A shadow fell across the marble path. Amara looked up to see a cloaked figure slipping from the darkness. One of the suitors who had failed earlier, his eyes gleaming with something dangerous. "Princess," he whispered, his voice low, "there are ways to bend this course if you are willing to play a different game." Amara's pulse quickened. The trials had only scratched the surface. The real danger and the real intrigue was only just beginning. Night had fallen over the palace, cloaking the gardens in silver moonlight. Princess Amara wandered the quiet corridors, her mind still tangled in the trials of the day. Each suitor's face haunted her thoughts, some noble, some cruel, all vying for her hand. But the encounter in the garden lingered most of all, the whispered promise of bending the course. Her curiosity pulled her to the secluded courtyard, the same place where the mysterious suitor had approached her. Shadows shifted as he stepped from the darkness. "Princess," he murmured, bowing low, "I see you are trapped by this curse, but there are ways to turn it to your advantage." Amara's heart raced. "What do you mean? Speak clearly." "The king's life can be extended, not through marriage, but through a secret ritual. It requires certain sacrifices." His eyes glinted with hunger, ambition, and something darker she couldn't name. Amara stepped back. "Sacrifices? What kind of sacrifices?" He hesitated, then lowered his voice. "Alliances, loyalty, perhaps even blood. The choice is yours. Help me, and I promise power and security beyond your dreams. Refuse, and the course continues. Your father weakens by the hour." Her stomach churned. The suitor's offer was tempting but dangerous. She realized with a shiver that not all who smiled at her courtly trials were what they seemed. Deception had already seeped into her palace. The next day, the trials resumed with a tension that Amara could almost taste. Whispers circulated among the suitors, rumors, half-truths, secret alliances. One of the northern nobles had been caught sending messages to an outside kingdom, plotting to secure her hand for political gain rather than love or loyalty. Amara's eyes narrowed. She had begun to see the patterns, the schemes lurking beneath polite bows and flattering words. The kingdom was not just testing the suitors, it was testing her, and if she misjudged even one, the consequences could be deadly. Kale appeared beside her, sensing her unease. "They are playing a game, aren't they?" he asked quietly. "Yes," she whispered, her gaze sweeping the hall. "But it's not just them. It's everyone, even the advisors. Some are not as loyal as I hoped." Kale's jaw tightened. "Then you'll have to rely on yourself. Trust your instincts, Amara. Don't let them manipulate you." Later that evening, Amara confronted the northern prince who had been caught sending messages. His arrogance faltered when he spoke. "Princess, you don't understand. This is politics. It's survival," he stammered. "Politics or betrayal? You plot behind my back while claiming to respect the kingdom?" The prince paled, realizing that his schemes were laid bare. Amara felt a grim satisfaction. This was no longer a matter of choosing a suitor. It was a battlefield, and she had to navigate it carefully to protect her father, herself, and the kingdom. That night, she returned to her chambers, the weight of decisions pressing down on her. Kale's words echoed in her mind. "Trust your instincts." And for the first time, she understood that saving her father might require more than marriage. It might require cunning, courage, and even defiance of the expectations that had bound her since birth. As she gazed out of the window at the moonlit gardens, Amara realized the truth. The path ahead was fraught with danger, but she would walk it on her own terms. Betrayal had been revealed, secrets uncovered, and the game was no longer about love, it was about survival. And in that moment, Amara swore she would not fail. Not her father, not her kingdom, and not herself. The sun rose over the palace in fiery streaks of gold and crimson, but Princess Amara felt no warmth. The final day had arrived. Today, she would make her choice, and the weight of the kingdom and her father's life rested entirely on her shoulders. King Darius lay in his chambers, weaker than ever, his eyes flickering with hope and fear. Amara knelt beside him, taking his frail hand in hers. "Father, I've considered every possibility, every path." The king's gaze met hers, strong despite his weakness. "And?" Amara swallowed hard. "I cannot marry without love. Not just for duty, not just for survival, but I will not abandon you either." Darius's brow furrowed. "Then what is your plan, my daughter?" Before she could answer, Kyle appeared at the doorway, his expression grave yet resolute. "There's a way," he said, stepping forward. "The curse, it isn't absolute. It binds the king's life to your marriage, yes, but it is also tied to your heart. If your heart acts with courage and truth, the magic can be broken without sacrificing your love." Amara's eyes widened. "Are you certain?" Kyle studied the old texts. There is a ritual, one that demands honesty, selflessness, and the will to choose love even in the face of impossible duty. It is risky, but it may save him and us. The princess turned to her father. "Father, I will attempt this, but you must trust me." Darius nodded, a tear slipping down his cheek. "I trust you, Amara, always." That evening, in the palace gardens under the full moon, Amara performed the ritual, Kyle by her side. She spoke words of courage and truth, declaring her love for him, yet vowing to honor her duty to the kingdom. The air shimmered around them, a soft hum filling the night. The ground trembled lightly, and for a moment, fear gripped her heart. But then, a warm light enveloped the king's chambers, spreading like dawn through the palace. She felt the weight lift, the invisible chains of the curse dissolving. King Darius stirred, stronger now, his eyes bright with life once more. "Amara, Kyle, what have you done?" "You chose your heart and your courage, princess, and the magic recognized it," Kyle said gently. Tears filled Amara's eyes as she ran to her father's side. "You are well. You are safe." The king smiled, his strength returning with each passing moment. "Yes, and so are you. You've saved us all, my daughter. Not just me, but the kingdom." In the weeks that followed, the palace buzzed with celebration. The suitors who had schemed and plotted departed in defeat, their ambitions shattered by the revelation that the princess's heart could not be bought or coerced. Amara and Kyle, now free to love openly, became a symbol of hope and courage for the kingdom. On the balcony overlooking the gardens, Kyle took her hand. "We've survived the trials, Amara, and now we can finally live for ourselves." Amara smiled, the sun catching in her hair like molten gold. "Yes, for ourselves and for the kingdom we love." For the first time, duty and love walked the same path, and Princess Amara realized that courage, honesty, and a steadfast heart could break even the most powerful of curses. The kingdom thrived, the king's health restored, and the princess, once trapped between obligation and desire, had discovered that the greatest power lay not in surrendering, but in choosing with wisdom and love. And so, under the golden sun and endless sky, a new era began, one where hearts ruled alongside crowns, and where love and duty at last could coexist.